Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is August 14th, 2025. Today is the feast day of St. Magdalene and Colby, if you're using the Nova Sorta calendar. It is also the vigil of the Feast of the Assumption of Our Lady, which tomorrow is the Holy Day of Obligation. Friday is the Assumption. Uh, if you haven't been to confession, get to confession so you can hopefully receive communion. Some of the olden day saints back in the medieval period only received communion 6 times a year. Usually those were on the holy days of obligation. So on top of their Easter obligation. So anyway, I had a long recess with these books, and I have to say that I finished the Glory of the Crusades most recently. I finished it about a week ago, and I think I found the most enjoyment out of that one, besides the first one I read, which was the um, What Were the Crusades, fourth edition by Johnathan Riley Smith. I think while Jonathan Riley Smith kind of spoke and generally what the Crusades were and what they were not, um, it was more fixated on certain criteria of who could go on a crusade and who shouldn't go on a crusade. It was focusing on when the indulgences were more realized and more mainstream. Um, who could go on a crusade, who could lead it, what were crusaders were not, and kind of thing. Well, the Glory of the Crusades book by Stephen Waldendorf. Uh, uh, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, but Stephen Waldendorf. This book right here just gives a general glimpses of all the major crusades, mostly in, I want to say yes, definitely in the Middle East. It does touch a little bit on the Albigensian Crusade and the Crusade in southern France and things like that. It doesn't really talk too much about the Inquisition or the Spanish Reconquista, which is the western part of the um, fight to repel the Muslims from uh, further invasion of Europe. It was good because it gave you nuggets of each crusade. It shows you the miracles of the first one, how everything was against the odds were against everyone in the first crusade, and then it turned out to be a miraculous story of victory. Then we find out the massive mobilization of the second one, but then how it quickly dissolved into a leadership disaster with the drowning of Frederick. Then we get to the amazing Third Crusade, which I think is probably a very underrated crusade. And yes, while we did not get Jerusalem back, we came very close to getting Jerusalem back. Had Richard stayed longer in the Holy Land after Saladin died, he might have had enough of a momentum going forward with a Muslim empire in disarray after the death of Saladin that Richard might have actually been able to not only retake the the Christian fortresses on the coast of the Holy Land, uh, he might have had some uh, momentum after Joppa and Acre to actually combat uh, and reclaim the Holy Land for a third time. The Fourth Crusade, which was a absolutely nightmarish, bad communication, um, disaster of sacking the wrong people and not having enough supplies, not getting the things you were promised, and just taking it out on the wrong people. It was just completely. They didn't have enough ships. They didn't have enough money. It was the Fourth Crusade was an absolute disaster. Sacking Constantinople was wrong. I mean, just wrong. There was a reason the Pope excommunicated the people who sacked Constantinople. And funny thing, in order to be classified as a crusader, Jonathan Riley's book, as well as Stephen's book, says that excommunicates and heretics could not be legitimate crusaders because they were not in the fold of the church. When you excommunicate yourself, you are kicked out of the church. If you're a heretic, you're not following church teaching. Therefore, you're not capable of receiving the graces of the plenary indulgence if you journeyed on this crusade. The Fifth Crusade and the Sixth Crusade were really mixes of various leaders not wanting to fully commit, and then you get Louis IX and his attempts to go on crusade twice. They changed directions to go toward Egypt. It was a bold strategy to try to cut off the supply chain of the empire to split the region in half. But ultimately, it just didn't have enough appropriate discipline and communication and supplies. Unfortunately, enough where the king got captured. King Louis got captured, and ended up dying on the Second Crusade, or on his Second Crusade, I should say. But then the funny thing, you have a very interesting crusade with Frederick. I forget his last name, but he negotiated his way to get Jerusalem. So this might be the Seventh Crusade, I believe, at this point. It was retained only for 15 years, I believe. But this particular person that went on crusade did it in a non-official status, because, again, I say before, like in the Fourth Crusade, if you are an excommunicate, you cannot take up the Signe Crucis, the sign of the cross. Therefore, you cannot be a crusader. But this guy reclaimed a lot of portions of the Holy Land, and God still used him anyway. So it was quite fascinating to read the short nuggets of the history of each crusade within this book. And it mostly sticks within the first 200 years of the Crusades. It's the same thing with this one right here. Obviously, they're like from 1095 to 1291, so that roughly that 200-year period. Where the other book is largely more expansive, because this talks about tours. Let's see. Yeah, you have Tours, you have Vienna, you have Malta, you have Famagusta. This book right here is largely largely more expansive beyond the Crusades. It's not so much on the Holy Land anymore. It's about defending pockets in Europe, whether it's Malta, Rhodes, Vienna, Tours, um, yeah, Hungary, Poland, you name it. It also talks a lot more about um, the Baltic Crusades, the Crusades up north against the pagan pagan Nordish countries of Scandinavia and things like that. So I want to say this one probably had the most geography in it. Like, I actually gave you a detailed map of the individual strategies of how the battles took place. Where this these two, you had to actually use your imagination more to conjure up what the author was trying to describe as far as the particular battle scenes, elevations, rivers, landscapes, things like that. This book right here had the maps. Um, I see if I can show you. Yeah, so um, not see that, but you know, so this one was 1526. So as you can see, that battle is nearly 300 years after the end of the Crusader states in the East, in the Holy Land. But also talks a little bit about the Reconquista, which is, you know, another unfortunately sore topic that is considered a black legend on the church. But truth be told, it's a Spanish defense of trying to get their territory back and trying to retain control. So, I mean, after you fight an 800-year war, because Spain was Catholic before it fell to Islam, and then in 1492, the same year that Christopher Columbus set sail west or east, I should say, um, by going west, um, that year was the year that's the final Islamic um, territory fell in Spain. So um, they were really important to history for the defense of Europe. The Reconquista strengthened Spain enough to ward off any further Muslims attack from the western part of Europe, coming from South or coming from North Africa, um, where the Crusades in the East, while they didn't do so well, most of them were supposed to not only reclaim the Holy Land but also keep the Muslims at bay from coming in from Eastern Europe. While we also had some battles here and there in the pockets that came in through Southern Europe via the islands of Malta and Rhodes uh, and Crete and all those places. So I like Jonathan Riley's Smith style. It's very informative, very very hit you on the nose, very quick. He's very informative, and he's probably one of the best um, Crusader researchers out there. I'm pretty sure he's deceased now. He's gone on to the eternal reward, but he he is a great writer on the subject, and I found his work a breeze to read. It was it was easy to read because, again, like what Stephen wrote, it was just enough to get your appetite sufficiently tested. This one, on the other hand, like this book right here, I would have to say, the latter half of the book, as you get closer to the Battle of Lepanto and Vienna, the more famous battles are where the book starts to get going. The first part of the book is fairly slower, and there are some battles in there that are not as well known to mainstream Catholics. But if you talk to the average lay Catholic who's a traditionalist, what Vienna is, what Lepanto is, what Tours is, what Malta is. They're because those are major battles that the Christendom won. That is what they're going to cling to. Like some of the other stuff, like the Hungarian Alamo, Famagostia, Molex, and yeah, they're a bit more obscure, or they're a bit more overshadowed, especially since some of the battles took place so quickly after the more recently larger battles. They are a fantastic look into the period of the last really 800 years. The Crusades are something that needs more investigating in, and really you've got to look at the Crusader period from a pre-18th century mindset, and the Enlightenment philosophers like Voltaire and John Knox and Immanuel Kant, those guys who quote the Crusades out of context, or don't use historical authenticity necessarily, or they exaggerate claims, hurt the modern perception of the Crusades. The Crusades unanimously, while there was some bad, most of the time it was a defense of Christendom, the reclaiming of the Holy Land, and to protect Christian pilgrims going to the Holy Land. And it helped foster spiritual religious devotion. Most people who sought to go on the crusade did not do it for riches and glory. Matter of fact, if you went on a crusade, you're going to lose everything of your material wealth, or it would cost you 3 months' salary. If you're noble, if you're peasants, it may cost you your entire inheritance. It may cost you your entire family name and property just to go on the crusade. And many of them did not go to stay there. They treated it like a modern day pilgrimage today. They would come back to their native homeland, and they would go back doing their business. And let's face it,